Right, so we're talking about opacity and blending modes. So this graphic or this document that I have open is activity 621 start. So if I just select, say, this orange circle here, you can see up at the top here I have an opacity value. I also have in my properties panel an opacity value. If I click on the word opacity up here, I can bring up my transparency panel, which is also available over here. Same thing. So what does opacity mean? It's basically the opposite of transparency. So opacity and transparency are dealing with the same concept, but they're at either extreme ends of the continuum. So opaque things are not see-through, transparent things are see-through. So milk is opaque, water is transparent. So to change the opacity of something, we just click in here and we can enter a new value or just use our arrow keys on our keyboard to adjust the transparency. And the transparency is a pretty predictable result. So you can see that as I adjust the transparency, I'm starting to see through, and you can see that where objects overlap, I can get some interesting results. Like when blue and yellow are transparent and overlapping, I get a green. And where blue and magenta are overlapping, I get a purple. So that is transparency. Let's talk about blending modes, which is kind of transparency but dealt with in a very different way. So if I take this yellow circle and instead of applying an opacity to it, I'm going to click and go to my blending modes, and I'm going to change that to multiply. You get a completely different result, and the reason why is because the multiply blending mode analyzes the colors in the selected artwork and the colors below that artwork and blends them together using a specific formula. So multiply means that the darkest colors will dominate and they will override the lightest colors. So you can see here that yellow is lighter than gray, and so the gray is dominant wherever it overlaps with the yellow. So that gives you quite an interesting result. And let's go to the magenta circle and let's change that to screen. Okay, that gives a totally different result where the lighter colors dominate. So where there's white, it stays white. Where there wasn't white, it takes on a mixture of the two colors together. And then let's take the cyan circle and let's try overlay. That gives us a completely different effect. Overlay deals with the sort of midtones. In fact, it doesn't really do much here. Let's try something like difference. Okay, so that's quite extreme. So you can play around with these blending modes. The multiply, screen, and overlay are the most commonly used ones, but all these others are just interesting different formulas in how to mix the colors together. So let's have a look at a practical example here where I've got a photo overlaid over the same artwork. So underneath here is the same artwork. So I'm going to take the photo and I'm going to apply a blending mode of multiply. And you can see that's quite interesting. Now we're getting colors mixing in a weird way, and that can be an interesting result for you. And here I'm going to take this one and I'm going to change the blending mode to screen. Okay, that actually looks even better. So for example, the pink and the photo and the magenta actually gives quite a nice result. So that's really where blending modes come into it. Now, one of the most useful things about blending modes is dropping out black or white, and I'll show you what I mean by that. So let's say that I needed a logo to be put into this document. So I'm just going to go onto Google. Let me just bring that up onto my screen. And I'm going to get a logo. I just typed in BMW here. I don't know why I don't drive a BMW. But let's take this one here. So, okay, that's got transparency, which is not what I want. Okay, here's one with a white background. So if I right click and just copy that into Illustrator and size it down. If I place it over this photo and I change the blending mode to multiply, and you see the way the white disappears. It takes the white away and it only keeps the darker colors. And if I change it to screen, the black and the darker colors disappear and the white stays behind. So that's pretty useful if you're wanting to add logos to things and drop out a white or a black background. Okay, so that's kind of a brief introduction to blending modes. I'm just going to delete that logo. So what I want you to do is to experiment with these items. Change the transparency in the first one, change the blending modes in the second one, and then at the bottom change the photo to multiply, and on the right hand side change the photo to screen. I hope you've enjoyed this video. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel and see you next time.